So, um, imagine sitting across from a supercomputer.
Yeah, okay.
And you're feeding it this highly confidential, incredibly complex business plan, like for a $200 billion tech monopoly.
Right, a massive company.
Yeah, and you're watching that AI slowly realize that the company in question is currently committing what it literally calls slow-motion suicide.
Which is just a crazy phrase for a machine to use.
Exactly. But that is exactly what we are looking at today. Welcome to the deep dive.
It's a phenomenal scenario, honestly. I mean, we aren't looking at a sterile corporate press release here or, a sanitized quarterly earnings report.
Right.
We are looking at a raw, completely unfiltered debate.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the source material for today's deep dive is unlike anything we usually examine. It's a direct, verbatim transcript of a strategic debate between a human business strategist and an artificial intelligence.
Specifically, the DeepSeek R1 model.
Right. And the subject of their debate is Adobe,
Yeah.
the undisputed heavyweight champion of creative software. But they are currently facing a massive existential crisis brought on by the exact AI revolution that this machine represents.
Yeah, and what makes this document so incredibly unique is the dynamic itself. I mean, typically when people use AI, they treat it like an oracle, right?
Or like a glorified search engine.
Exactly. They ask a question, they accept the answer, and they move on. But in this transcript, the human actively challenges the AI.
They push back.
Hard. We are going to witness a human pushing a highly advanced neural network to completely abandon its safe, MBA-style, risk-averse corporate programming.
And instead, it embraces this radical, burn the boat strategy for Adobe survival.
We are essentially watching a negotiation over the future of a monopoly happening in real time.
And to everyone out there in our YouTube audience right now, whether you are a casual vlogger in Southeast Asia just trying to get your audio synced up,
Right.
or maybe you're a university student making memes in your dorm room.
Or a professional filmmaker cutting a feature-length documentary.
Exactly. This software monopoly affects your daily creative life. You interact with this ecosystem constantly.
You feel the friction of it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this deep dive is entirely about the tools you use every single day. Or, well, perhaps the tools you wish you could afford to use but can't.
Because the landscape of creative tools isn't just shifting a little bit, the tectonic plates are aggressively colliding right now.
Yeah, the way we create digital media is fundamentally changing. And this transcript gives us a front row seat to how the biggest player in the space is attempting to survive the earthquake.
Right. But before we get to the human's radical ideas that completely broke the AI's corporate logic, we really have to understand the starting point.
Remember baseline.
Exactly. When the conversation began, what did DeepSeek R1 initially say Adobe's master plan was? Because when I read the first few pages, the AI actually started off aggressively defending Adobe's current trajectory.
It totally did. The AI's initial stance was essentially a perfect synthesis of Adobe's current publicly stated defense mechanism.
Right.
DeepSeek R1 outlined that Adobe is acutely aware of the threat, like they know what's coming, and they are actively trying to avoid being swept away by the generative AI wave.
But their strategy to survive isn't to build entirely new standalone AI apps that compete with their own legacy software.
No, instead, their strategy is heavy integration. They are taking AI and bolting it directly into the core of their existing massive products.
So rather than building a new car from scratch, they are just trying to attach rocket boosters to the side of a heavy 20-year-old diesel truck.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
Yeah.
And the transcript gave some very specific, highly technical examples of how Adobe is attempting this integration. Like, let's look at Acrobat, for instance.
Acrobat is a wild example because for decades, a PDF has basically been the digital equivalent of a piece of paper.
Right. It's a static, dead document. You
Yeah.
look at it, you print it, maybe you sign it, and that's literally it.
Yeah, exactly. It was designed to be immutable. But Adobe is now fundamentally transforming the mechanics of the PDF. They're adding features where you can literally open a chat window alongside your document and interact with it.
But to understand why that matters, we have to look at the mechanism. Like, how does that actually work?
Well, Adobe's AI is taking that static 50-page corporate report, parsing the text, and turning it into a vector space.
Which is essentially a massive mathematical map of the document's concepts, right?
Precisely, which means you can ask the PDF to instantly summarize its contents into a podcast-style audio briefing.
That's crazy.
Or you can ask it to extract all the financial data and generate a presentation directly from the document. The static paper becomes an interactive database.
And as a user, I look at that and think, well, that is genuinely cool. it is highly useful.
Oh, for sure.
If I have to read a 100-page legal contract,
Yeah.
having an AI summarize the clauses for me right there in the app is a massive time saver.
It's incredibly useful. But as DeepSeek R1 points out in the transcript, it is a defensive utility.
Right, defensive.
It is specifically designed to keep you opening Acrobat instead of uploading that PDF to some random third-party startup's website.
Yeah, they want to keep you in the walled garden.
Exactly. And the AI goes further, detailing Adobe's shift toward what it calls an AI native platform. This is a crucial pivot point in the document.
We really need to clearly distinguish between generative AI and agentic AI here, because Adobe is betting the farm on the latter.
Yeah, let's slow down and make that distinction crystal clear for everyone listening, because in the tech world right now, those two terms get thrown around like confetti.
They totally do. And people often use them interchangeably when they're structurally very different things.
Right. So generative AI is what the vast majority of people interact with daily. You go to ChatGPT or Midjourney, you type a prompt like, draw me a picture of a cat on a skateboard, and the system generates an image.
Or a paragraph of text.
Yeah.
Or a snippet of Python code.
Exactly. It is a single discrete output based on a single human input. The human has to evaluate the output, and if it's wrong, the human has to rewrite the prompt.
Right, it's a one-to-one transaction. You pull the lever, you get a prize.
But agentic AI, which Adobe is heavily leaning into with massive enterprise platforms like Adobe Experience Cloud, operates on a completely different mechanical loop.
Oh, so?
An agentic system doesn't just generate a piece of content. It is designed to autonomously orchestrate complex multi-step workflows. It has a goal, and it can execute a plan to achieve that goal without constant human hand-holding.
Okay, so give me an example of how that actually functions in the real world for a business using Adobe.
Sure. Imagine a massive retail company launching a new sneaker.
Okay.
With generative AI, a human marketer would ask the AI to write 10 different email subject lines. Then pick the best one, ask the AI to write the body copy.
Wow.
Then the human would manually go into their database, segment their audience by age, and manually schedule all the emails.
Which still takes a lot of time and a massive team to execute.
Yeah. Exactly. But with agentic AI built into Adobe Experience Cloud, the human simply gives the system a high-level goal, like run a campaign to maximize sales for this new sneaker among our existing customer base.
Just a simple prompt.
Right. And then the agentic AI autonomously dives into the customer database. It segments the audience itself.
Wow.
It decides that 18 to 24-year-olds should get a highly visual, edgy email, while 35 to 40-year-olds should get an email focusing on comfort and durability.
It figures that out on its own.
Yeah. It autonomously generates the distinct copy and images for both segments. It schedules the delivery. And most importantly, it monitors the analytics in real time.
So it adapts.
Yes. It notices that the older demographic is clicking but not buying, and it autonomously rewrites and sends a follow-up discount code to that specific group.
That is mind-blowing. It acts like an entire digital project management team.
It really makes human marketing teams strategic directors rather than tactical button pushers. And Adobe is simultaneously trying to protect their core creative moat, the video and photo editing side, by partnering with and acquiring AI video startups.
Like Runway, right. The transcript highlights that as a massive defensive move.
Yep.
They are integrating these generative video models directly into the timeline of Premiere Pro. So if you are a video editor and you realize you forgot to shoot a specific B-roll shot of a city street,
You don't have to go to a stock footage website, buy a clip, download it, and import it.
exactly, you just highlight the empty space on your timeline, type busy city street at dusk,
Yeah.
and the AI generates the clip natively inside the software.
And this brings up the most critical part of Adobe's current defense mechanism,
Yeah.
which DeepSeek R1 heavily emphasizes in the transcript: enterprise safety.
Yes.
The AI refers to Adobe's strategy as pitching commercially safe AI to massive corporations.
Let's break down the mechanism of that safety, because right now there are massive multi-billion-dollar lawsuits flying around regarding copyright infringement.
Oh, absolutely everywhere.
Companies are terrified that if their employees use a random AI to generate a graphic for an ad campaign, that AI might have been illegally trained on Disney's copyrighted material.
And then the company's going to get sued into oblivion.
Right. The legal liability is the bottleneck for enterprise AI adoption. And Adobe's solution is Firefly.
Yeah, Adobe trained their Firefly models exclusively on Adobe stock images, openly licensed content, and public domain material where the copyright has expired.
So it's a clean data set.
Totally clean.
Right.
Because they own the rights to the training data, They can offer what is essentially an intellectual property indemnity shield to corporations.
That's a huge deal.
They go to a Fortune 500 company and say, use our AI. It lives right inside the tools your team already uses, and if anyone ever sues you for copyright infringement because of an image our AI generated, Adobe will pay the legal bills.
That is a massive selling point for a nervous corporate general counsel. So when we look at the AI's initial summary, Adobe is doing everything right according to the traditional corporate playbook. They are integrating deeply, they are acquiring startups, they are building autonomous agents, and they are providing legal safety for the enterprise clients that pay the biggest bills.
Right.
And I have to play devil's advocate here, because if you look at their financial health detailed in the source, Adobe looks invincible.
On paper.
They reported Q4 2025 revenue growth of 10.5% year over year. They are pulling in billions upon billions of dollars in highly predictable recurring revenue.
Massive amounts of cash.
If I am the CEO of Adobe, I am looking at my spreadsheet, I am looking at that 10.5% growth, and I am saying, why change anything? We are winning.
That is exactly the friction point where this transcript gets fascinating.
Right.
Because you are looking at the revenue sheet, which is a lagging indicator. It tells you what happened yesterday.
Right.
But the source explicitly points out the massive disconnect between that internal revenue sheet and the external stock ticker.
Yeah.
Because while Adobe is printing money today, their stock is down nearly 9% in just a 3-month period leading up to this debate.
Which feels entirely contradictory. I mean, how can revenue be up double digits, but the value of the company is dropping like a stone?
The transcript points to the PE ratio, the price to earnings ratio, and Adobe's PE ratio is currently sitting at a 10-year low.
Okay, let's explain the mechanics of a PE ratio for the listener who might not obsessively watch financial news, because it is crucial to understanding the market psychology here.
Simply put, the PE ratio is how much investors are willing to pay today for $1 of a company's future earnings.
Okay.
If a company has a high PE ratio, it means investors believe the company is going to grow massively in the future, so they're willing to pay a premium for the stock right now.
But if a PE ratio crashes to a 10-year low, it means the exact opposite.
Yes, it means investors are looking at Adobe's current massive profits and saying, enjoy it while it lasts because we don't believe this is sustainable.
Wow. They're actively discounting the future of the company.
Exactly. The market is aggressively projecting a future where Adobe's current revenue streams begin to dry up. And DeepSeek R1 outlines 3 very specific market fears driving this panic.
What's the first one?
First is disruption risk.
This goes back to what we were just talking about with the agentic AI, right?
Right. The market's fear is that these new AI agents won't just help a user inside Photoshop. They might eventually automate the specialized task entirely.
Oh, I see.
If an advertising agency currently pays for 50 Adobe Creative Cloud licenses because they need 50 human designers to manually resize, format, and color correct images for a global ad campaign.
But suddenly, an autonomous AI agent can do all of that formatting and resizing perfectly in 3 seconds.
Then that ad agency doesn't need 50 licenses anymore. They need 5.
So the efficiency that AI brings might literally destroy Adobe's seat-based pricing model. You are automating away your own customers.
Exactly. What is the second fear the AI identifies?
Unproven monetization. Adobe has spent an absolute fortune, billions of dollars in compute power, research, and acquisitions to develop and launch these new AI features.
Right.
But Wall Street is looking at it and asking, can you actually charge consumers enough extra money for these AI tools to offset the inevitable decline in your traditional software licenses?
And the answer so far seems to be a resounding maybe.
Yeah, maybe. People love the AI tools, but they balk at paying a massive premium on top of an already expensive subscription.
Which leads directly to the third market fear.
Fierce competition. It isn't just nimble 2-person startups in a garage anymore. The transcript points out that Microsoft and Google are aggressively adding incredible, powerful AI capabilities directly into their massive productivity suites.
And they are often offering them for free or at a massive subsidy.
Yeah, the tech giants are violently encroaching on Adobe's territory. And the AI notes that the next major make-or-break test for all of this sentiment is Adobe's Q1 2026 earnings report, due on March 12, 2026.
So, to summarize the baseline, Adobe thinks they are succeeding because they are heavily fortifying their massive castle. They are adding laser cannons to the walls, digging the moat deeper, and building stronger gates.
But Wall Street is panicking because they realize the peasants outside the castle have just figured out how to fly.
Aha! Exactly.
Adobe is executing a flawless ground defense in a world where the entire paradigm of warfare has permanently taken to the sky.
They are perfectly optimizing a legacy business model in a revolutionary environment. And history is incredibly unkind to companies that do that.
It really is. And this exact disconnect between Adobe's internal corporate confidence based on lagging revenue and the market's external panic based on future projection is exactly where the human strategist in our source transcript spots a fatal gaping flaw.
This is where it gets good.
This is where the human launches their first major strike against the AI's safe defensive logic. Let's look at how the human begins to dismantle the argument.
Well, the human introduces a psychological concept that I guarantee will resonate deeply with almost everyone listening to this deep dive right now. The human strategist calls it Adobe fatigue.
Oh man, Adobe fatigue. Just hearing the phrase makes my wallet ache. I feel it in my bones.
It is a visceral reaction. And the human argues that when a company holds a near monopoly in a creative industry for decades, and they enforce an authoritarian lock-in with a $60+ per month mandatory subscription price tag,
it breeds a deep, simmering resentment among the user base. It isn't just a financial calculation. It is a profound feeling of being trapped.
And the human makes a brilliant, highly specific comparison here to Apple. Because you could argue that Apple is also a massive, expensive ecosystem that actively tries to keep you locked inside.
Right, so why don't people have Apple fatigue in the same way?
The human points out the critical mechanical difference in the lock-in. Apple uses a hardware-subsidized ecosystem.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
When you buy into Apple, you are buying a premium physical device. The iPhone, the M series MacBook, the iPad. You hold it in your hand. It is beautifully designed.
I love my MacBook.
And that physical object psychologically subsidizes the software experience. The lock-in is somewhat willing because the hardware provides immense tangible value.
Right. I physically enjoy typing on it. But Adobe relies purely on a software rental monopoly. I don't own Photoshop. I'm just endlessly renting access to a digital workspace.
Exactly.
And the human argues that the friction comes from the consequences. If I decide to stop paying Apple, I still own my laptop. It still turns on.
Yeah.
But if I am a freelance designer and I hit a rough patch and can't pay my $60 Adobe bill for 1 month, Adobe shuts off my access.
You're out.
I'm instantly locked out of all of my own life's work. The proprietary PSD files and Premiere project files are useless without paying the toll.
It is a hostage situation, economically speaking. And the human argues that this authoritarian approach means that the second a genuinely viable, high-quality alternative arrives on the market,
Consumers won't just casually migrate.
no, they will aggressively flee out of spite.
What's fascinating here is how the AI reacts to this psychological argument. Because usually when you argue with a supercomputer, it relies purely on spreadsheets and data points.
It doesn't understand emotion.
Right. But DeepSeek R1 doesn't try to defend Adobe's pricing model or justify the subscription revenue. It immediately concedes the point.
The AI's validation is striking. It explicitly states that the human's analysis of Adobe fatigue is spot on.
Spot on. It used those exact words.
Yeah. It acknowledges that it perfectly reflects a massive growing discontent among professional and amateur creators alike. The machine recognizes the emotional brittleness of the business model.
The AI literally admits that Adobe is sitting right in the bullseye of consumer fatigue.
The AI even generates a table in the transcript, breaking down this exact vulnerability. It highlights the mechanical friction of high costs.
Which is huge.
That $60+ a month Creative Cloud subscription is an insurmountable barrier, especially for hobbyists, students, or small business owners who maybe only need to use 1 or 2 apps for a few hours a month.
And contrast that high cost friction with the current AI competition. The AI points out that OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google are offering AI tools that are often completely free or bundled into existing cheap subscriptions.
And they are, quote, good enough for many tasks.
Good enough is the single most dangerous phrase for a premium monopoly.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly. Let's ground this in reality for a second. If I am a casual YouTube creator listening to this, and I just shot a quick vlog, and I need to make a halfway decent thumbnail so people click on it,
Right.
am I going to pay Adobe $60 a month, download a massive piece of software, and spend 3 weeks watching tutorials just to learn a wildly complex legacy interface with 1,000 nested menus?
Yeah, absolutely not.
No way. I'm going to go to Canva or a free AI image generator and use a browser-based tool that gets me 80% of the way to a professional result in 1/10 of the time for $0.
And the data within the transcript absolutely supports this behavioral shift. The source points out a highly specific metric, a 10% churn rate vulnerability.
Okay, let's explain what that means mechanically for a business.
A 10% churn rate means that every single year, 1/10 of Adobe's entire subscriber base is canceling their subscriptions and leaving the platform.
That is a massive hemorrhage.
It means Adobe has to spend a fortune on marketing and customer acquisition every single year just to replace the people fleeing the friction before they even see a single dollar of actual growth.
And the AI also brings up the friction of community trust. It isn't just about the money. The transcript mentions past controversies over Adobe's terms of service.
Yes, there were massive community uprisings when Adobe updated its terms, and users interpreted the legal jargon to mean that Adobe was claiming the right to use their private, unfinished customer artwork to train Adobe's AI models.
Which people hated.
Even though Adobe clarified and walked back the language, the damage was done. It severely eroded the fundamental trust between the creator and the toolmaker.
So consumer sentiment is essentially operating as a delayed economic indicator. People are currently paying Adobe billions of dollars a year, not because they want to, but because they feel they have to.
Because it's the entrenched industry standard and their employer demands it.
But the fatigue is entirely real. The resentment is a quantifiable business liability.
It creates an incredibly brittle foundation for a $200 billion company. When your customers actively dislike your billing model and they are actively rooting for your competitors to succeed, your moat is significantly shallower than your massive revenue sheet suggests.
Okay, so this is where the dynamic really shifts. The human and the AI both completely agree on the diagnosis. Adobe is universally resented, structurally vulnerable, and facing a massive churn problem.
Yeah.
But when the human suggests a solution to fix this, the AI immediately retreats right back into classic, hyper-defensive, risk-averse corporate speak. This brings us to what the transcript frames as the freemium dilemma.
And the human's proposed solution is truly radical. They don't suggest a minor price cut or a new marketing campaign.
No.
They tell the AI that Adobe needs a complete top-to-bottom, burn-the-boats makeover of their entire business model.
Burn the boats.
Yeah. They need to aggressively switch to a true freemium model for their core products, focus heavily on real-time browser collaboration, and drastically target emerging regional markets.
They specifically mention places like West Africa and parts of Southeast Asia, right?
Exactly. Places where the $60 price tag is an absolute impossibility based on local purchasing power.
The human literally suggests that Adobe needs to build a CapCut version of Premiere or a Google Docs version of PDF.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of software mechanics, CapCut and Google Docs are defining the modern architecture of the user experience.
What they have in common?
They are browser-based, meaning there is nothing to download or install. They are natively collaborative, meaning multiple people can work in the exact same file at the exact same time without saving and emailing versions back and forth.
Right.
And crucially, the barrier to entry is $0. You click a link, and you are creating.
But the AI pushes back incredibly hard here. DeepSeek R1 throws up the standard impenetrable corporate shields. It warns the human of the ultimate boogeyman for any established software monopoly: cannibalization.
Yes, the AI points directly to the math. It notes that Adobe currently has over $18 billion in annual recurring revenue, or ARR.
That is a massive, highly predictable, highly profitable machine that Wall Street relies on.
The AI argues that if Adobe follows the human's advice and offers a genuinely great, powerful free tool, it will immediately cannibalize or eat into the sales of their expensive professional software.
Why would a mid-level design agency buy the cow for thousands of dollars a year if Adobe is suddenly giving the milk away for free?
Exactly.
And honestly, if I am defending the AI here, that is a perfectly logical, rational fear. You are asking a CEO to intentionally dynamite a bridge that is currently transporting $18 billion a year into their bank account.
On the sheer hope that a new free bridge will eventually attract enough volume to monetize later, that is a terrifying prospect.
It is the absolute core of the innovator's dilemma.
The AI also brings up the mechanical difficulty of brand and product complexity. It argues that Adobe's core strength is its professional depth. Photoshop is powerful because it is complex.
Right, it's not supposed to be simple.
The AI argues that taking a massive, deeply intricate program like Premiere Pro and trying to simplify it into a CapCut-style interface is a completely different, almost contradictory software design challenge.
And the AI also points out that the light app space, the simplified free video and photo editor market, is already intensely crowded.
Very crowded.
You have tools like DaVinci Resolve offering Hollywood-grade color grading for free. You have Microsoft pushing Clipchamp.
Yeah.
The AI is saying, if we drop down into the mud to fight for the free users, we are fighting a war of attrition against companies that don't need to make money on those tools.
So the AI proposes what it considers to be a safe, highly structured middle ground. It offers a phased, cautious strategy.
What does that look like?
It suggests introducing a very limited Adobe Express free tier to attract the casual users, while keeping the heavy tools strictly paywalled.
Yeah.
It suggests unbundling the massive apps to create slightly cheaper modular bundles, like offering a Pro Lite subscription where you just get Photoshop for maybe $5 a month, but it lacks the advanced AI features.
Got it.
And it insists Adobe must double down on its enterprise safety with Firefly custom models because the Fortune 500 companies will always pay the premium.
Okay, here is where I have to step in and push back on the AI. Because the machine is acting exactly like a nervous PR executive trying to manage a crisis without actually changing anything fundamental.
Oh, totally.
It's basically saying, let's just hand out small, watered-down free samples in the lobby, but keep the VIP room firmly locked and charge full price for entry. It wants to appease the casual user without risking a single dime of the core $18 billion revenue.
It is attempting to capture the new low-end market without disrupting the cash cow of the old high-end market. It is a textbook attempt to have their cake and eat it too.
But the human in the transcript isn't buying it for a second. And think about your own workflow listening to this. If you are frustrated with Adobe, would a slightly cheaper elite version of Photoshop actually win you back from a tool like Canva?
Probably not.
Or is the whole paradigm changing? Do you want a crippled, mathematically limited version of a pro tool that constantly asks you to upgrade? Or do you want a fast, free, fully collaborative tool that natively does exactly what you need without the friction?
The AI actually generates a table breaking down this free versus fee dilemma, and it perfectly illustrates the mechanical disadvantage Adobe has. Look at the competing architecture of a company like Figma or Canva. Their entire entry point is freemium. Their advanced AI features are often included directly in the free tiers to hook the user.
And crucially, real-time multiplayer collaboration isn't a premium add-on you buy later. It is the foundational mechanism the software is built on.
Whereas Adobe's model is completely inverted. The baseline is a high-cost subscription. The advanced AI features are gated behind a confusing system of generative credits.
Meaning you can only generate a certain number of AI images before they throttle your speed or charge you more.
Right. And collaboration often requires complex, traditional per-seat licensing, meaning if I want my client to just view and comment on a working file, they might need an Adobe account. It's a clunky, high-friction, old-world approach.
The AI thinks it has provided a perfectly logical MBA-style answer. Protect the revenue, offer minor concessions, focus on the enterprise.
But this is exactly where the dynamic of the conversation entirely flips. The human doesn't just accept the AI's cautious answer. The human goes on the offensive and systematically dismantles the machine's logic.
This is genuinely my favorite part of the entire source material. This is the turning point of the debate. Because the human looks at the AI's fear of cannibalization and rejects it entirely.
Completely rejects it.
The human argues that offering a freemium version of the heavy core products, we were talking real Photoshop, real Premiere, not watered-down light versions, is the only path to survival.
And the human psychological argument here is incredibly perceptive, something the AI completely missed.
What was it?
The human argues that offering a massive freemium tier isn't about giving your current paying enterprise customers a free ride. It is about capturing a massive global segment of people who view Adobe as an aspirational product but simply cannot afford it right now.
Yes. The human points out a fundamental truth. People want to use Photoshop. They want to cut their indie film on Premiere. These are the gold standards. It's the software their heroes use.
But the $60 paywall stops them.
Right. If you make the core tools free, you instantly capture the university student in London, the small business owner in Nigeria, the YouTuber in Jakarta who is just starting out.
The AI is forced to explicitly outline this realization in the transcript. It calls the human's point about aspirational branding a profound insight that turns a commodity into a club.
A club. I love that.
By giving away access to the real heavy Photoshop, you don't devalue the software. You validate it as the ultimate tool. You turn a whole new, massive generation of global creators into Adobe natives.
To really drive this home, the human points to a powerful historical analogy: Huawei.
This is a fantastic comparison. Let's expand on exactly what Huawei did, because it mirrors the strategy the human is proposing.
Okay.
When Huawei, the massive Chinese tech giant, was hit with US sanctions, they were suddenly cut off from the Android operating system and vital microchip supply chains. Their core smartphone business was essentially destroyed overnight.
They were facing immediate existential ruin.
Exactly. So what did they do? Did they try a slow, cautious, phased approach? No. They absorbed massive, brutal, short-term financial pain.
Right, they just hold back.
They poured billions into frantically developing their own operating system, Harmony OS, from scratch. They rebuilt their entire silicon supply chain domestically. They took a devastating hit to their current revenue to ensure they literally had a product to sell 5 years down the line.
They burned the boats.
Yeah.
They accepted the short-term pain to build a resilient, independent future.
Yeah.
And the human strategist is looking right at the AI and telling Adobe to do the exact same thing. You have to take the massive financial hit to your $18 billion ARR right now. You have to cannibalize your own revenue to guarantee that you actually own the creative tools of the future.
Otherwise, Canva and CapCut are going to eat you alive from the bottom up.
And what is truly remarkable here is the AI's reaction. We expect computers to be stubborn. We expect them to double down on the math of the safe corporate programming. But DeepSeek R1 has a stunning complete reversal.
I couldn't believe this part when I read it.
It's wild.
The AI explicitly states to the human, and I am quoting directly from the transcript, "Your latest points are the sharpest yet." And it admits that the human's logic is devastatingly effective.
An artificial intelligence admitting that a human's logic is devastatingly effective against its own deep learning corporate models. That is wild. It's like watching a chess computer resign because the human played a move it fundamentally didn't understand.
It is. The AI realizes that its obsession with cannibalization was what it calls a zero-sum way of thinking. It thought every free user was a lost paid user.
But it acknowledges that the human is actually talking about infinite market expansion.
Right. It's about creating a pipeline of future professionals who grow up instinctively using Adobe tools because those tools were free and available when they needed them most at the beginning of their journey.
There's this great conceptual argument brought up in the source during this exact exchange, and it's called the Rolex fallacy.
Yes, this is a brilliant analytical moment that breaks down the mechanics of brand value.
How does the AI explain it?
The AI had initially worried that making Adobe's heavy tools free and universally accessible would kill the brand's mystique. The AI compared Adobe to a luxury good. It argued that if you give everyone on Earth a free Rolex, the Rolex instantly loses its status value and the brand is destroyed.
But the human perfectly deconstructs this and proves the AI entirely wrong. What is the mechanism of a Rolex? A Rolex is primarily a Veblen good. It exists almost purely for status signaling.
Its actual utility telling the time is entirely secondary. A $10 Casio tells the time more accurately than a mechanical Rolex.
So yes, if you give away a Rolex, you destroy its scarcity and therefore you destroy its value.
But the human argues that Adobe is not a Rolex. Adobe is a utility good. A graphic designer doesn't use Photoshop to show off to their friends at a dinner party. They use it to create complex art that pays their mortgage.
Its value is derived entirely from its functional power.
Exactly. A free, wildly powerful utility tool doesn't lose its value just because more people use it. In fact, it's the exact opposite.
It actually gains immense value through network effects because it becomes the universal default language of creation.
Right. If every printing press and video production house on Earth expects an Adobe file, giving the tool away for free just cements its status as the absolute necessity. It launches careers.
The human also elegantly dismantles the AI's fear of brand complexity. Remember, the AI argued that a free tool needed to be incredibly simple and dumbed down, like Canva, to appeal to the masses.
But the human argues that the complexity of Adobe's software is actually a massive part of its allure.
Right. People want to master Photoshop. When you first open it, it looks like the cockpit of a 747.
It is intimidating.
Very intimidating.
But when you spend hours watching tutorials and you finally figure out how to perfectly use the pen tool to mask out a subject, it feels like an achievement. You feel like a professional.
The complexity is the proof of its power. The human argues that dumbing it down insults the user. You just need to remove the financial friction of letting them learn it. So at this point in the transcript, the AI is almost entirely convinced. The human strategist has broken through the traditional business logic.
But the AI throws up one final, seemingly insurmountable roadblock. And it is the biggest boss in the corporate video game, Wall Street.
Yes. DeepSeek R1 essentially says, okay, your strategy is brilliant, it will ensure long-term dominance, but it is impossible to execute.
Because of the stock market.
The AI warns that Adobe's executive leadership is likely frozen with fear. Why? Because abandoning a highly predictable $18 billion recurring revenue model to switch to a massive freemium model would cause a catastrophic stock crash literally overnight.
Let's explain the specific mechanism of this corporate trap, because the AI mentions activist investors. This is a very real, very pragmatic defense. If Adobe's CEO wakes up tomorrow and announces, Photoshop and Premiere are now free for 90% of the world, our revenue is going to drop by $8 billion this year, but trust me, we will own the market in 2030. Wall Street will absolutely panic.
The stock price will instantly plummet by 30 or 40%.
And when the stock plummets that drastically, activist investors, hedge funds that look for vulnerable companies will aggressively swoop in. They will buy up millions of these suddenly chip shares.
And then what?
They will gain enough voting power to call an emergency board meeting, fire the CEO who proposed the freemium model, install their own puppet CEO, and instantly reinstate the high subscription prices to artificially pump the stock back up.
It is a structural capitalistic trap. The AI is essentially arguing that surviving the short-term financial demands of Wall Street is a strict prerequisite for achieving the long-term strategic goals of a publicly traded company.
You can't build a future if you get fired today.
But the human delivers the final, crushing blow to the AI's defenses. The human brings up the ultimate counterexample, the Google Alphabet analogy.
This raises an incredibly important point about historical precedent in the tech sector. The human points out that Google is also a massive publicly traded, wildly profitable monopoly facing intense Wall Street scrutiny.
Just like Adobe.
And just a few years ago, Google faced the exact same existential AI-driven threat that Adobe is facing right now.
ChatGPT.
Precisely. When OpenAI launched ChatGPT, it was a direct existential threat to Google's core search business, the mechanism that prints nearly all of their money. If people are asking a chatbot for answers, they aren't clicking on Google search ads.
So, faced with that threat, did Google cower to Wall Street? Did they try to protect their incredible search margins by slowly rolling out minor, safe, cautious integrations?
No, they did the exact opposite. They panicked, but in a productive way. Sundar Pichai literally declared a code red. They restructured their entire massive corporate architecture.
It was a huge pivot.
They merged their two distinct competing AI labs, Google Brain and DeepMind, forcing them to work together. They pushed the Gemini model out the door.
And most importantly, they cannibalized their own search real estate by putting AI overviews at the absolute top of the search results, fully knowing it might decrease ad clicks in the short term.
They chose survival over margin optimization.
The human brilliantly argues that investors actually punish uncertainty and inaction much more severely than they punish bold strategic moves.
Exactly.
If you tell Wall Street, we are burning the boats to win the AI war, the stock might dip, but investors will respect the aggressive pivot. The human literally tells the AI, the house is on fire already. Taking the slow, cautious approach may very well be the death knell.
And here's where it gets really interesting, looking at the practical application of the strategy. The human strategist points out the sheer brilliance of what an all-in Adobe would actually look like mechanically.
What would it look like?
They argue Adobe shouldn't just try to build a minor clone of Canva, they should completely absorb Canva's entire playbook, but execute it with Adobe's vastly superior engineering and utterly crush them.
It's a strategy of overwhelming firepower.
Exactly. Let's walk through the mechanics of this hypothetical Photoshop canvas idea that the human implies. Imagine if Adobe released a browser-based, natively collaborative tool that has 80% of the raw core power of desktop Photoshop.
Okay, wow.
It has deep native AI integration via the Firefly image generators. It handles massive files effortlessly. And it is completely 100% free for individuals.
If they actually did that, Canva would instantly have a massive existential problem. Why use Canva's simplified tools if you can get actual Adobe power for the same price of zero?
Right.
And CapCut, which annoyingly locks basic features behind random paywalls right as you are trying to export a video, would look pathetic next to Adobe offering genuinely powerful, enterprise-grade video editing in the browser for free.
The analysis of this strategic pivot is crucial for understanding the whole document. The humans successfully taught the AI that being a massive, publicly traded monopoly is not an excuse for slow, cautious integration.
It is the very reason you have the capital and the power to act decisively.
We are fundamentally looking at two distinct opposing models here. The cautious integration model, which is Adobe's current path, adding cool AI features behind existing paywalls and complex credit systems to justify continued price hikes.
Which, as we established, just aggressively increases the Adobe fatigue and drives the 10% churn rate higher.
Versus the human's radical democratization model, using AI not as a premium feature, but as an operational mechanism to make the core, heavy products free and accessible for massive segments of the global population.
Monetizing only the massive enterprise clients at the very top who need security and immense compute power.
Exactly.
I want to pause the corporate strategy for a second and ask everyone listening to just visualize this reality. Think about your own creative output.
Yeah, picture it.
If you are a student editing YouTube videos, if you are a freelancer designing graphics for local businesses, if you manage documents for a law firm, imagine if tomorrow the absolute premium industry standard tools, the ones that cost thousands of dollars a year, were suddenly completely free.
Fully integrated with hyper-intelligent AI.
Right, and accessible instantly from any web browser without a massive installation. How would that functionally change what you are able to make?
It would completely democratize high-end digital production. The financial and technical barrier to entry for professional-grade media would instantly drop to zero. Anyone with a cheap laptop and an internet connection would have the exact same tool set as a Hollywood studio.
So the human has systematically, point by point, destroyed every single corporate defense the AI had for Adobe's current business model.
It's amazing to read.
They dismantled the cannibalization fear, they disproved the Rolex fallacy, they neutralized the Wall Street panic using the Google precedent. Let's look at the AI's final verdict on this all-in strategy because it is quite a profound moment in the transcript.
The AI completely and utterly surrenders its initial position. It calls the human's counter-argument devastatingly effective once again, and it explicitly agrees that the slow and steady approach Adobe is currently taking is nothing less than, and this is a direct quote, slow-motion suicide.
Slow-motion suicide. An incredibly advanced artificial intelligence generated that exact phrase to describe a highly profitable $200 billion company's current, meticulously planned business strategy.
That is chilling. The final, agreed-upon vision between the human strategist and the AI is stark. It is a wildly proactive strategy where Adobe must absorb the competitor's freemium playbook, use its superior legacy tech and massive brand weight to obliterate the competitor's value proposition.
And willingly accept the severe short-term financial pain and Wall Street backlash in order to guarantee long-term global dominance in the AI era.
The target fundamentally shifts. The goal is no longer about squeezing $5 more a month out of existing creative professionals in New York and Los Angeles. The target becomes the entire planet.
Hundreds of millions of students, hobbyists, and massive emerging markets in West Africa, India, and Southeast Asia.
And this raises a truly important, almost meta question about the nature of our source material itself. Think about what we just witnessed.
What do you mean?
What happens to the consulting industry or the strategy industry when humans begin using AI not just for basic spell check or writing simple code or generating a funny image, but to aggressively pressure test and completely rewrite massive corporate strategies?
It's an incredible sparring partner. We literally watched an AI start with a rigid, highly logical, MBA-style defense of a corporate monopoly.
Yeah.
It was defending the spreadsheet.
Yes.
And we watched a human use emotional logic, the psychology of brand aspiration, and complex historical precedents like Google and Huawei to fundamentally reprogram the AI's conclusion in real time.
To visually recap the AI's final assessment of this radical pivot, it presented a final table of risk versus reward. The risk is severe: a sharp, incredibly painful short-term revenue drop, a plummeting stock price, and the very real threat of activist investors circling the boardroom.
But the reward?
Becoming the absolute indispensable platform for all digital creators everywhere on Earth indefinitely, reinforced unshakable long-term dominance in a post-AI world.
For the massive YouTube audience out there listening to this final segment highlights something absolutely vital for your future. The landscape of the creative tools you use every day is about to become an absolute bloodbath.
A total war.
Canva, CapCut, Adobe, Google, Microsoft, Figma, they are all currently arming themselves to go to total war over your attention, your workflow, and your loyalty. And the ultimate winner of this multi-billion-dollar corporate war will be you, the creator.
You are going to get incredibly powerful, enterprise-grade, AI-driven tools for a fraction of the cost you pay today, or quite likely, entirely for free.
The friction of digital creation is rapidly approaching zero. The mechanical barriers are falling away entirely.
As we wrap up this massive deep dive, we need to step back and look at what this entire fascinating exchange really means for the future of how we work.
We started by examining Adobe's seemingly stellar Q4 2025 earnings and their cautious bolt-on AI features like Acrobat Chat. We dug deep into the underlying psychological resentment of Adobe fatigue and the terrifying mathematics of a 10% annual churn rate.
And finally, we watched a brilliant human strategist systematically convince an advanced supercomputer that Adobe must literally burn down its current $18 billion subscription model, offer its heaviest, most complex tools for free, and go to total scorched earth war with the nimble startups like Canva and CapCut.
It is an absolute masterclass in strategic forward-looking thinking. It is about overriding the immense institutional momentum and financial gravity that usually blinds massive successful companies to their own fatal vulnerabilities.
So what does this all mean? It means the era of the safe, slow-moving, rent-seeking software monopoly is definitively over.
It is being driven to extinction by a brutal combination of hyper-aggressive AI competition and the rapidly changing zero-friction demands of global creators who simply refuse to be locked into archaic, expensive pricing models anymore.
The monopolies that ultimately survive this decade will be the ones that possess the incredible courage to cannibalize their own profits before a faster, leaner competitor does it for them.
Exactly. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final, highly provocative thought, something to deeply mull over while you are waiting for your next video to export, or while you are designing your next thumbnail in whatever software you use.
It is a thought that wasn't explicitly covered in the human-AI debate, but it is the absolute, unavoidable, logical next step of this entire transition.
Where does a zero-friction world ultimately lead us? Think about this. If this radical all-in strategy actually happens, if Adobe, driven by the sheer terror of the AI revolution and intense market pressure, is forced to make its most complex, powerful, formerly expensive tools completely free and accessible to billions of people globally.
What exactly happens to the value of human creative skills?
Exactly. When every single person on Earth has instant, free access to the absolute gold standard of AI-powered creative software in their browser, does the value of being a highly technical Photoshop expert or a Premiere Pro wizard simply disappear overnight?
If the autonomous AI agent does all the heavy mechanical lifting of cutting the footage, color grading the scene, and mixing the audio perfectly,
does true human taste, unique perspective, and raw artistic vision become the only currency we have left?
when the mechanical execution of art becomes completely effortless and free, the original idea becomes everything.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the defaults, keep looking for the hidden friction in the tools you use every day, and most importantly, keep asking the hard, complex questions, especially when you find yourself talking to an AI.